I'd first like to begin again by acknowledging that the land we're gathered this morning is the traditional territories of many nations, including the Mississauga of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, Chippewa, the Honduras, and the Wendat peoples. Vision 2020 and beyond, the future direction of the settlement industry will be influenced by large societal transformations currently underway, increasingly disrupting different aspects of Canadian society. Some developments that will directly impact and reshape our industry include Canada's increased reliance on immigration for our population and economic growth, higher levels of refugees, including refugee claimants, increased numbers of temporary residents, growing labor market shortages linked to accelerated retirements and an aging population, and the impact of technology and automation. One of the things I'd first like to start off is it time now that Canada embrace the notion of a Royal Commission on Immigration? With the impact of immigration on every aspect of Canadian society, Canadians, although we continue to see public support overall, Canadians are really not engaged with immigration in the sense that they don't know the numbers. Recent polling during the election indicated, some of the challenges that we have to face on the ground as we work with newcomers and the public. Is it time for a Royal Commission or a white paper on immigration? Is the current consultations that lead to the minister standing up, usually today or tomorrow in the House of Commons, sufficient enough to dictate that 1 million people are going to come in over the next 3 years? Besides the overall increase in immigration levels, we need to address the unfettered growth of international students and temporary foreign workers. A case in point, international students. The reality is the international student volume has now developed into an annual $8 billion industry, and in 2018, close to 575,000 students were studying at various institutions, public education schools across the country. The system has not considered the increased settlement-related needs of these students seen by the settlement industry, even though they are non-eligible IRCC clients. This includes things as basic information and orientation, mental health supports, housing challenges, some employer abuses. At the same time, a growing number, up to 1/3 of temporary residents, are converting to permanent residents. They're already in the country. So the settlement industry has raised for years that these non-eligible IRCC clients require some supports, but who pays for it? We know that the national settlement budget is finite. Do we have to start thinking out of the box now? Is it time for the federal government to introduce new processing fees or impose new fees on schools and employers to increase the funding within the budget so that we can adequately support growing needs within non-eligible client population? The current scenario is at a breaking point that, unless addressed, will lead to unintended consequences. More industries are looking to technology, automation, artificial intelligence to help address labor market shortages while maintaining and increasing productivity. We have observed these developments even within the federal government through the use of call centers, automated service attendants, online applications, email communication, etc. Within the settlement industry, over the past decade, we have been experimenting with various forms of technology to help us enhance our impact, deliver staff training, improve program accessibility, while exploring new ways to address client service volumes and needs. We can see the growth and use of social media, text messaging, online language classes and workshops, navigational apps, online pre-arrival service, and so forth. This is all developed in the last decade. The problem is not all our clients can interact with technology. What happens to them? Additionally, many of the entry-level jobs taken by newcomers to acquire Canadian work experience will change, and in some cases, disappear in the future. Will a growing crisis and labor market shortage and reduce membership due to retirees within regulatory professional bodies, create new opportunities for accelerated recognition of newcomers with internationally acquired skills? That's a question. Two issues immediately rise with the increased reliance on technology. How will the settlement industry, particularly smaller agencies, find the needed resources to invest in digital transformation processes? Equally important, how do we ensure that some newcomers are not left behind, further marginalized as a result of an increased reliance on technology? Unless told otherwise, we can assume that humanitarian immigration will continue at roughly 10 to 12% of overall immigration levels. Unless there are adjustments in UNHCR referral parameters by IRCC, we will continue to receive resettled refugees who are digitally illiterate, non-English speaking, and of course on income assistance. That will require specialized supports, including assistance in this ongoing challenge within the sector of form filling, a controversial area within our industry and IRCC that badly needs clarity and modification as an eligible service support. Going forward, we will need to ensure that specialized settlement case management programming is in place across Canada, based on national, not regional, national comparable services, tools, standards, and outcomes. Looking inward for a moment, the settlement industry faces recruitment, attraction, and retention of employee challenges that every industry in Canada is facing. No one is immune. Increased professionalization, service quality, and client outcomes are directly linked to our ability to offer adequate compensation and professional development opportunities. For the first time ever last year, CISA, AXI, and OCASI launched a national compensation survey across Canada. The findings confirmed that many employees, largely racialized women, faced unacceptably low compensation rates. Another finding out of this study, 41% of employer respondents did not have a pension plan or an RSP arrangement in place. It is imperative that we address this issue. Every employee needs to have a livable wage with basic health and dental benefits and a retirement scheme. The issue of reducing services to increase compensation versus keeping compensation low to sustain current services will continue to dodge our industry without a supplemental increase to the settlement budget to address the compensation issue. Although employers dictate the terms and conditions of their employees, we must address this issue in partnership with our largest funder, IRCC, and the issues outlined above that have resulted under the CA negotiations. With increased client volumes and needs and long-standing providers meeting or exceeding agreed-upon targets, service quality, and fiscal accountability, the settlement industry and IRCC must continue to find ways to accelerate additional service and program investments within existing national settlement budget allocations. But how can we better utilize existing funding? So on the one hand, we're seeing these increased in volumes, we're seeing increased demands on the ground, but how do we maximize the resources that we already have? Part of that through the program Reset has been encouraging pilots, and I'm getting a little bit into the weeds, but this notion of moving slippage from one fiscal year to another, really simple concept that allows us to hold on to the funds that we have fought so valiantly for. After spending weeks providing numerous supporting documents to negotiate a CA for an agreed amount and specified activities, Why is it necessary in 2019 to have 5 financial claims and 5 narrative reports on an annual basis? Why is it that if a provider under or overspends in a budget category by a certain percentage, that a revised cash flow and a CA amendment may be required? How many full-time equivalent staff within the settlement industry and IRCC could be reinvested into direct program delivery to meet increased client volumes if we were not solely focused on managing and monitoring where funds are spent, especially within a pre-approved, negotiated legal agreement? Now, looking ahead, we must move forward together to better align the vision and intended outcomes of the National Settlement Program with far more appropriate levels of accountability. The current system is not sustainable. As we peer into the foggy distance, there are many blue sky questions that we will continue to work together, trying to unpack and understand. We will do this in great collaboration and partnership with IRCC. At the end of the day, how do we know that we are successful? What can we measure and attribute towards our program service offerings funded by IRCC? Is it even possible to define these elements for the purpose of building capacity and replicability? What is the balance between national standards, priorities, and ensuring comparable services across Canada versus regional priorities? These are some of the big picture questions that we will continue to swirl around us as taxpayers and elected officials ask about value for money. Lastly, in summary, at the end of the day, our role as nation builders, as agents of social cohesion, will remain as important as ever. We are uniquely placed through our specialized knowledge and expertise acquired through working directly with newcomers to adjust and respond to increased volumes and programming scope. This specialized knowledge is not easily replicated by non-settlement actors. Our flexibility, our innovation, our curiosity, ability to adapt and respond will support us through these unprecedented societal changes currently underway. This is the essence of our DNA, who we are and how we work. Thank you.